Smoke rises from the bronze horns of the altar in Jerusalem. The smell of burning meat. One man chasing 1,000 enemies on a battlefield. A kingdom reigning for 1,000 years in the final book of the world. This number drops into the text. It is not creating life in a valley. It is standing alone against an army. Look at your own life. Look at the battles you are fighting right now. You sit in the dark. The screen glows in your face. You open the bank account and the numbers are red. You hold the medical report in your hands and the thin paper shakes. You walk into the courtroom, or the quiet, empty house, or the fluorescent lights of a hospital hallway. You smell the stale coffee. You feel the cold linoleum under your shoes. You feel the sudden drop in your chest. You do the math. You calculate the odds. You count your resources. You count your allies. You count your energy. You count the days until you break. You realize you are outnumbered. The world teaches you to retreat when the numbers look like this. But the ancient text refuses your arithmetic. Before the commander Joshua dies, he gathers a fractured, exhausted nation. He gives them a final equation. He tells them exactly how the math of heaven operates in the dirt of human reality. One of you routs 1,000. Joshua says, because the Lord your God fights for you. 1 against 1,000. We hear that and we think of superhero movies. Same number, same pattern. Again and again. Most people assume the writers of the Bible are just doing math. We imagine a cinematic warrior swinging a bronze sword against a screaming horde. We distance ourselves from the text. But bring it into your own living room. One person carrying a broken past. One person holding a fragile, exhausted prayer. One person stepping into a space where failure seems mathematically certain. When God stands in the center of your deficit, the odds do not just shift, they shatter. Your single, trembling effort is met by the Aleph, the herd, the exhaustless, heavy-shouldered strength of heaven. The opposition is massive, but the backing is infinite. The 1,000 is not a literal enemy army. You fight with a sword. It is the sum of every force stacked against you. It is the addiction that has outlasted every rehab center. It is the anxiety that screams in your ear at 3 in the morning. It is the mountain of debt that keeps you awake in a cold sweat. It is the generational trauma stacked up against your single, desperate desire to heal your family tree. You are one. The problem is 1,000, but the math of the covenant dictates that when you step forward, the infinite steps forward with you. God does not need a majority to win your battle. He does not need you to gather an army before he acts. He needs one willing person to stand in the gap. This is not an inspirational metaphor. It is a divine multiplier. The presence of God turns your single unit of obedience into an unstoppable force. They think 1,000 is a literal tally. They read the texts like a spreadsheet, assuming it is a precise calculation. But if this number can describe the overwhelming grace pouring into your personal life, what happens when it is applied to the end of human history? What happens when an exiled prophet, banished to a rocky island, sees this exact same number stamped across the final timeline of the cosmos? An old man sits on a prison island. The Aegean Sea crashes against jagged black volcanic rock. The wind tastes like salt and sulfur. John is exiled, living out his final days on the penal colony of Patmos. His skin is weathered like leather. His hands are calloused. And the rough papyrus scroll on his lap is illuminated by the flickering light of a small fire. But his mind is about to be split open by the heavens. He watches the sky tear apart. He sees a messenger descending from the fractured atmosphere. This being is not carrying a sword. He is holding a heavy iron key and a massive, dragging chain. John watches as this messenger seizes the ancient serpent, to the dragon, the unseen accuser who has haunted the human race since the first breath in the garden. The angel hurls the beast into a bottomless abyss. He slams the heavy door shut, turns the iron key, and seals it. The sound of the lock clicking into place echoes through the cosmos. And John writes down the duration of this captivity. 1,000 years, meant to be graphed on a timeline or plotted on a topographical map. They see the number and they start counting zeros. In the Greek text of Revelation chapter 20, the word is chilioi, and for 20 centuries, readers have fought brutal theological wars over this single phrase. They build complex chronological charts. They argue endlessly over premillennial, post-millennial, and amillennial timelines. They treat John's highly symbolic apocalyptic vision like a literal political calendar, desperately trying to map the 1,000 years onto modern geopolitical events, looking for clues in the daily news cycle. But John is a Hebrew thinker writing in Greek. He is pulling from the exact same conceptual well as Moses, Asaph, and Ezekiel. He knows the vocabulary of the Aleph. He knows the heavy, unyielding shoulders of the ox. The 1,000 years is not a futuristic train schedule. It is the absolute, unbreachable boundary of divine victory. When John sees the dragon chained for 1,000 years, he is not providing the exact expiration date of evil for a history textbook. He is providing a theology of total sovereignty. Just as the cattle on 1,000 hills means God owns everything, and the covenant to 1,000 generations means God's mercy outlasts everything. The 1,000-year binding means God's authority totally eclipses the enemy's power. The chaos that currently ravages the earth has been placed under an infinite lockdown. The victory is complete. The enemy is entirely restricted by a number that represents the exhaustive fullness of divine control. But when human beings encounter this, arguing over whether the 1,000 years of Revelation is a literal epoch, or if 1,000 generations can be calculated down to the exact decade, kind of infinite scale, we almost always make the same fatal mistake. We try to shrink the infinite down to something we can fit inside our calculators. You hold the calculator in your hand. The plastic shell is cold. The digital screen glows white in a dark room. You tap the keys. You want answers you can verify. You smell the dry ink of whiteboard markers. You draw timelines. You connect the dots. You want the universe to fit inside a grid. This is the modern disease. We love to measure. We crave the spreadsheet. We demand the topographical map. When we read the ancient text, we treat it like an accountant's ledger. But when we encounter the infinite, we panic. We try to shrink it down. We try to compress an ocean into a glass jar. We take the promise of 1,000 generations, and we multiply it by 40 years. We take the vision of 1,000 cubits, and we try to find the exact geographical coordinates of a stream in the Middle East. We take the 1,000-year reign of Revelation, and we desperately try to map it onto modern political elections. We miss the entire point. The ancient writers are not giving you a math problem. They are trying to shatter your calculator. Every time they write the word Aleph, they are pointing at the ox. They are pointing at the massive, heavy-shouldered beast pulling the yoke. They are pointing at the thick cloud of dust. But if you look closer at the ancient Hebrew mind, at the vocabulary of the desert, at what actually happens, raised by an endless, breathing herd moving across the plains, they are forcing the modern, analytical mind to look at the exhaustless, unmeasurable reality of the divine. God's economy does not operate on human scarcity. His timeline does not tick like a wooden grandfather clock in the hallway. His mercy does not run out when your patience fails. His victory is not a temporary ceasefire negotiated by kings in suits. The text is deliberately breaking your categories. It is forcing you to realize that human measurement is a fragile, temporary illusion. You cannot measure the river of grace. You cannot count the cattle on the hills. You cannot put a padlock on the timeline of eternity. The 1,000 is not a boundary line you can step over. It is the moment human mathematics breaks down completely. We fight this. We resist it. We want to be the ones holding the measuring tape. You want to know exactly how much grace is left in the bank. You want to know exactly how many days are left on the calendar. You want to know if your specific failure has finally exceeded the limit. You calculate your mistakes. You count your regrets. You tally up your broken promises, holding them in your hands like heavy stones. But this breaking down of our mathematics is exactly what you need. Because when your own numbers finally fail you, you are ready to understand the end of the story. When this specific number is invoked, you start to see something the literal, mathematical reading completely misses. 1,000 is not a metric of human measurement. God claims the cattle on 1,000 hills, and the myth of human provision is shattered. A covenant stretches to 1,000 generations, and a history of rebellion is swallowed by divine loyalty. A single day expands into 1,000 years, and the human panic over the clock is permanently silenced. A linen cord measures 1,000 cubits in the dirt, and a dead sea bursts into life. One broken soldier chases 1,000 enemies, and the earthly mathematics of defeat are completely rewritten. An iron key seals a door for 1,000 years, and the ancient accuser is locked in the dark. A scribe writes the first letter of the Aleph and the Heavy. Unyielding strength of heaven crashes into the human story. Same number, same God. But maybe the part that stays with me most is the river in Babylon. A priest standing in a current he can no longer control, holding nothing but a measurement he cannot comprehend. The water hits his knees, and then his waist, and then his chest. It is not a stream he can step over. It is the sudden intrusion of the infinite. To feel the weight of this number, you have to stop thinking like a modern accountant. It is not a puddle he can map. It is a river so massive, so completely disproportionate to human expectation, that his only option is to let go of the ground and swim. If you are in a season where the numbers are stacked against you, if you are calculating your deficits, counting your failures, or staring at a timeline that feels hopelessly delayed, stop trying to do the math. You cannot calculate the infinite with a human ledger. The God you serve does not operate in fractions. He does not measure out his mercy in microscopic, carefully audited amounts. He meets your finite exhaustion with the Aleph, the herd, the massive, uncrossable river. And may the God who owns every breathing thing on the mountains walk with you through your deepest deficit and bring you out carrying a grace you could never have calculated on your own. You have to stand in the dust of the ancient Near East, where a man's wealth is not kept in a ledger, but in the breathing, moving animals out in the open pasture. You have to look at the original language itself, at the very letters they carved into parchment, mixed with raw blood and crushed frankincense. Hangs heavy in the morning air. The stones of the courtyard are slick with it, because the secret to unlocking every time the Bible says 1,000 does not begin with a math equation. It begins with an ox. Open a standard English Bible to Psalm 50, verse 10, and you will find Asaph's vision neatly translated for a modern audience. God owns the cattle on 1,000 hills. We read that and immediately imagine a topographical map. We picture a vast landscape, perhaps rolling green mountains stretching to the horizon, and we subconsciously put a numerical cap on it, 999 hills, plus one more. To read it correctly, you have to look at the ink on the ancient scroll. The word translated as 1,000 here is the Hebrew Aleph. It appears over 500 times in the Old Testament, and its origin tells a completely different story than a modern calculator would. If you trace the letters back to their ancient pictographic roots, the word Aleph is inextricably tied to the dirt and the harvest. The very first letter of the word, Aleph, was originally drawn by ancient scribes as the head of an ox, complete with two sharp horns protruding from the skull. It carried the meaning of raw strength, of leadership, of the heavy leather yoke resting on the shoulders of a massive beast pulling a wooden plow through hard, sun-baked earth. A musician named Asaph stands in the shadow of the temple. He watches the priests butcher the sacrifices. Because of this, Aleph developed a range of meaning that goes far beyond a simple tally. It means a clan. It means a family unit. It means a densely packed herd of cattle moving as one massive, breathing entity, raising a thick cloud of dust into the sky. It is the exact same word the warrior Gideon uses in the book of Judges. Chapter 6. When a divine messenger tells Gideon to save Israel from foreign invaders, Gideon protests. He looks at his own weakness and says that his clan, his Aleph, is the weakest in the tribe of Manasseh. He is not doing a census. He is not saying his family tree has exactly 1,000 relatives. He is talking about his military unit, his collective tribal strength. That root changes everything. When the psalmist hears God claim the cattle on an eleph of hills, God is not providing an inventory list. He is not counting peaks and valleys. He is invoking the image of the ox, unstoppable, unmeasurable, earth-shaking strength. He is declaring that every living, heavy-breathing creature that walks on the dirt belongs to his household. 1,000 is not a numerical boundary. It is the vocabulary of exhaustless abundance. You cannot count it any more than you can count the individual blades of grass the herd is eating. But if this ancient word transforms how we view the physical landscape, something even stranger happens when a prophet applies it to the human bloodstream. He watches the endless, bleeding line of worshippers dragging their livestock up the steps, trying to pay a debt. They stand on the edge of the Jordan River. The wind burns their faces. The air smells like dry brush and hot stone. Behind them lies 40 years of sand, 40 years of shallow graves, 40 years of eating bread that falls from the sky and tastes like honey. They are a nation of escaped slaves. They are scarred. They are exhausted. They are staring across the water, terrified of the walled cities and the giants in the land ahead. Moses stands before them. He is old. His voice cuts through the desert wind. He does not offer them a battle plan. He does not give them a weapon. He gives them a number. Know therefore that the Lord your God is God. Moses declares in Deuteronomy 7, He is the faithful God, keeping his covenant of love to 1,000 generations. 1,000 generations. Think about the sheer math of that phrase. If a biblical generation is 40 years, 1,000 generations is 40 millennia. If you count it literally, humanity has not even existed on the earth long enough to see the end of that promise. If it is a mathematical calculation, it is an absurdity. But Moses is not teaching biology. He is not setting a calendar. He is using eleph. He is bringing the image of the ox massive, unyielding, heavy-shouldered strength into the concept of human bloodlines. God's loyalty is not fragile. They are trying to feed the divine, to buy favor with the bodies of goats and bulls. And then, a prophetic vision hits Asaph. God speaks. It does not snap when the nation panics. It does not break when they build a golden calf in the dirt. It does not dissolve when they complain about the water. They murmur. They rebel. They die in the dust. But the covenant does not die. The promise outlives their rebellion. The promise outlives their judges. The promise outlives their kings. The 1,000 generations are not a biological timeline. They are a declaration of relentless loyalty. An ancient Israelite hearing those words is not doing long division in their head. They are feeling the weight of an anchor dropping into the earth. God is telling them that His mercy is an unstoppable herd. It will trample their failures. It will run right over their faithlessness. It will not stop moving forward through the centuries. The number is meant to crush their anxiety under the sheer weight of His faithfulness. But here is the detail that disrupts everything. If eleph is used to describe the vastness of God's grace in the physical landscape and in human ancestry, what happens when it is applied to the clock itself? What happens when this massive, unyielding word crashes into the spinning of the earth? We are a species haunted by the clock. We fragment our lives into microscopic slivers of time. He is not asking for more meat. He is mocking the very idea that a human could ever provide for him, measuring our worth by the rhythmic ticking of a second hand or the glowing numbers on a smartphone screen. We live in a perpetual panic about the future, constantly running out of minutes, constantly chasing the next deadline with a cold sweat on our skin. When the ancient text steps into this human anxiety, it shatters our fragile relationship with time. Using the same massive number, the author of Psalm 90 looks up from the dust of human mortality and declares that 1,000 years in God's sight are like yesterday when it is past, or like a single 4-hour watch in the middle of a dark night. Centuries later, the Apostle Peter repeats this exact same pattern when writing to a group of early Christians who are exhausted from waiting for the world to change. He introduces the Greek word chilioi, the New Testament equivalent of eleph, and states that with the Lord, One day is like 1,000 years, and 1,000 years are like one day. Most modern readers look at this and try to create a mathematical conversion chart. They try to calculate the exact speed of divine time, as if God is operating on a different mechanical gear. I have no need of a bull from your stall. The voice declares, "For every animal of the forest is mine," that can be accurately mapped out by human hands. The 1,000 years is not a countdown. It is a perspective. When the scripture expands one day into 10 centuries and collapses 10 centuries into a single day, it is deliberately breaking the human calculator. It is forcing us to realize that God does not experience time through the lens of human scarcity. He does not panic when our clock runs down, and he does not grow impatient when the centuries drag on. If this deep dive into the hidden layers of the scriptures is sparking a sense of wonder in you, you're exactly who this channel is for. Take a moment to hit subscribe and share your insights in the comments. Because every single week, we unpack the profound mysteries hiding inside the ancient text. So Peter uses this cosmic arithmetic to comfort people facing intense suffering. He wants them to realize that what feels like an endless delay to a human being is merely a single heartbeat to the Creator. God is not slow. He is simply operating in the realm of the infinite, where human numbers lose their rigid boundaries. But this disruption of human metrics does not only happen to the clock. When a visionary prophet is dragged into a valley, and the cattle on 1,000 hills. 1,000 hills. It is a phrase that echoes through the corridors of the ancient texts to look at the reconstruction of the temple. The number 1,000 is used to measure something even more fluid than time. Ezekiel stands in the ruins of a broken world. He is in exile. He is a priest with no temple, living in the dust of Babylon, watching his people weep for a city that has been burned to ash. But in the vision, the stones are perfect. The sanctuary is whole, and from under the eastern threshold of the temple doors, water is seeping into the dirt. It starts as a slow trickle, a quiet stream cutting a path through the sun-baked earth, flowing down toward the dead. Salt-choked sea. A divine messenger stands in the water. In his hand, he holds a linen cord. He unrolls the rough hemp, pacing out a distance into the desert. He does not measure a mile. He measures exactly 1,000 cubits. He tells the prophet to step into the current. Ezekiel walks in. The water swirls around his ankles. It is cold. It is moving. The messenger measures another 1,000 cubits. Ezekiel walks deeper. The water rises to his knees. The current grows heavier, pushing against his legs. The messenger measures another 1,000. The water hits his waist. It is soaking his garments, pulling at his body, demanding his balance. He measures a final 1,000. It is no longer a stream, a covenant kept to 1,000 generations, 1,000 years passing like a single night watch. A river measuring 1,000 cubits deep. It is a river. It is a surging, roaring torrent of deep water that cannot be walked through. The riverbed drops away. The prophet loses his footing. He must swim. Every time the cord stretches out to that specific number, the life pouring from the temple multiplies. Where this water flows, the Dead Sea turns fresh. Where this water flows, trees burst from the sand, their leaves heavy with medicine. Swarms of living creatures erupt in a wasteland that has not seen life in centuries. Most people read this passage and try to map the geography. They try to figure out the exact depth and width of a future stream in the Middle East. They treat the vision like a geological survey. But the 1,000 cubits are not a surveyor's calculation. They are the terrifying, uncrossable depths of divine grace. The prophet is being taught that when God pours out life, it cannot be waded into casually. You do not stand on the edge. You do not keep your feet on solid, predictable ground. You are swept up in an overwhelming volume of restoration that completely removes your illusion of control. It demands total surrender to the current. But if 1,000 is the measurement of an uncrossable river, what happens when this exact same number is handed to a single human being? Because the next time